Let us enjoy this time of worship.
Good morning. I'm Corbanka, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees here at South Valley Unitarian Universalist Society. My pronouns are his, him, and he. Come, whoever you are welcome here. No matter your age, your size, the color of your eyes, your hair, your skin, you are welcome here. No matter your gender, whom you love, how you speak, or whatever your abilities, you are welcome here. You're welcome here whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears in your eyes, you are welcome here. No matter what you have experienced in the past, no matter what awaits you in the future, you are welcome here. Whether you believe in God all of the time, or some of the time, or none of the time, you are welcome here. This is a community of open minds, loving hearts, and willing hands. You are welcome here at South Valley Unitarian Universalist Society.
This morning we gather together as a community and we honor tradition in Unitarian Universalism, our water communion or our water service. Typically, this time of year is a form of homecoming, a returning and a renewal at the beginning of the church year. We do this today and we honor this tradition despite the fact that we're not able to gather in the same way that we might normally. The road ahead continues to have challenges that prevent us from gathering in person, and we are in the midst of a world that seems as if it might yet break apart. And so I offer these opening words in the form of a video created by a colleague of mine to remind us of our resilience and of our strength. You can see that I have a hard time reading so far ahead. Here we go.
Strength of water takes on many forms, just as each of us has a unique and necessary strength that we bring to our community and the work of love. Take a moment now to drop down into the deep wellspring of your own spirit and bathe yourself in the strength that is the groundwater of your person. Are you a roaring fall wearing rock away with sheer force of will? Are you a small sliver of water in a crevice, breaking it open slowly and steadily? Are you buoyant, like a great salt lake, practiced at holding yourself or others aloft? Are you tenacious like the mountain stream, finding your way down and around and through every obstacle you face? Are you still and calm like the pond at daybreak, radiant peace found by your shores? Are you in touch with hidden depths, pulling from a vast well deep within? Do you soothe like the steam rising from a cup of tea? Do you dissolve away stubborn muck like dishwater? Do you soften and smooth the edges like a creeping fog? Do you clear away distraction like a cleansing rain? Do you roll with the ebb and flow, with the rhythm of the ocean waves? Settle your mind upon the strength, the power that is yours. Draw that strength into your heart, draw it up into your soul, and there find peace. As we endure difficult times together, we need each of our power, each of our resilience, each of our love to make us whole.
Our gathering hymn this morning will be number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. The lyrics will be in the chat box if you would like to sing along in your home. Everyone but myself will be muted. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day, and to rejoice and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day, and to rejoice and come in. And to rejoice and come in. And to rejoice and come in. Today will be a joyful day, and to rejoice and come in.
We would like to extend an especially warm welcome to those of you who may be visiting with us for the first time. We're so glad that you are here. We would love to get to know you in a way that makes sense and is comfortable for you. Our greeter today, Anne, is going to drop our connection card into the chat box right now for any newcomers who wish to be connected to our community. This is a caring and supportive community. If you find yourself in need of support or care, please let us know how we can best support you. The pastoral care card has now also been put into the chat box, and it's available on our website. All of our online services are intergenerational. To find out more about the religious exploration classes that take place during the week, please contact Rebecca Britt, our Director of Religious Exploration. Her email is now being also dropped into the chat box. We have a lot going on here at South Valley, and one of the best ways to get and stay connected is via our weekly newsletter, The Happenings. You can sign up to receive our newsletter on our website and check out all the classes and events that are available during the midweek of our time. You can also find us on Facebook, so that although we are physically separate, we are still together. I have just two announcements to share with the community this morning. The first is that there will be a congregational meeting on Sunday, September 20th at 12:30 p.m. following social time. All members are encouraged to join us for this brief congregational meeting. The agenda for the meeting includes voting to approve the budget and a suggested change to the bylaws. An agenda and background information will be made available to the membership via the weekly Happenings newsletter this week. Also, Spiritual Snacks is starting to launch over the next few weeks with two new offerings. The first is Centering Prayer Wednesdays and Fridays with myself, starting this next week on Wednesday at 12:30 and Friday at 7:30 a.m. This is a 15-minute opportunity for you to just dip in, get connected to community, and then go back into your busy days. We also have meditative heart music starting on the 22nd with Mary Norton. I hope you'll come and check it out. Give us your feedback, give us your new ideas for how to get and stay connected at this time. We are a joyful and collective community, and I'm going to hand it back over to Mary now to share the warmth of community.
We will now share the warmth of community. Please take this time to say hello to each other in the chat box. Please say where you are joining us from, and everyone will be unmuted, so some joyful chaos for a moment or two.
to say anything?
University, so that way you can explore and
Morning,
check out all
all.
kinds of
Hi.
different subject areas. And then you go to a specific
Hi, good morning.
Oh, go to a regular
Great to
college.
see all of
Gives you more
you.
options to
So
explore
great to see
during
the
your young years
sanctuary.
when you should be exploring and checking out everything,
Yeah.
including it. You know what I mean? So
So nice to see you all.
yeah, and then if you decide to go to Full Sail or some other film school later for masters or second degree or whatever,
Film school.
that
Bye.
makes total sense to me.
will take you
All right.
Yeah, they'll take you anytime. So they're always an option. You can postpone it as long.
So, why don't we jump on the Zoom call just enough that they know we.
Mute all, please.
I love this private conversation we're hearing.
I know. Right.
And podium.
Okay, let me just get set for our children's story. This story is called The Vessel of Compassion. Oh my gosh, technical issue. Got to get out of there. Get in here. Okay, here we go. Gotta share the screen. Okay, so this following story for Water Communion was written by Katie Gelfand. Katie Gelfand is the Director of Religious Exploration in the congregation that raised her, the First Unitarian Universalist Church of New Orleans. Concurrent to her work as a DRE, she is also a Reiki master and a multifaceted healing arts practitioner. Once upon a time, in a time that is both this time and no time, at the turning of the 9th moon of the year, 4 women journeyed. 4 women journeyed from 4 different directions to share a moment of sacredness together. Each carried a pitcher of water from her home, embedded with the stories and emotions of her life and community. They congregated around an empty vessel, united in the desire to listen to the stories and the hearts of one another. And here we see a picture of a woman with a heart in the middle of her chest. It's a warm colored picture and the heart is big and glowing. The youngest woman came from the east with a spirit of air. As she poured water from her pitcher into the vessel, she shared stories from her home about the excitement of children being born, the music of laughter that fragranced the neighborhoods, and the bliss of young people falling in love. As she shared the story of her heart, she laughed, and drops of liquid joy burst from her mouth and landed inside the vessel. And here we see a picture of a woman in a pink hat and dress. Her arms are up as if she is dancing to a wild tune, and the ends of her hands look like musical instruments. The 4 women paused to honor the stories from the East and the spirit of the woman who shared them. The mother came from the South with a spirit of fire. As she poured water from her pitcher into the vessel, she shared stories from her home about adapting to the ever-changing world of motherhood, the challenges of navigating family life, and the difficulties her community faced with transitions in leadership. As she shared the stories of her heart, a drop of sweat formed on her brow and landed inside the vessel. And here we see a woman bathed in yellow and orange light, and she's glowing from her lips and her hands and from her womb. The 4 women paused to hear and to honor the stories from the South and the spirit of the woman who shared them. From the West, with the spirit of water, came the sovereign woman. As she poured water from her pitcher into the vessel, she shared stories from her home about friends and loved ones who had died. the grief of those who miss them, and the deep pain she carried for the wounds humans have inflicted on each other and on our world. As she shared the story of her heart, a tear of sadness fell from her eye and landed in the vessel. And here we have a picture of a woman with a black skirt and a red top, her eyes closed and her hands on her face, and she is weeping. The four women paused to honor the stories from the West and the spirit of the woman who shared them. And from the North came the elder woman with the spirit of earth. As she poured water from her pitcher into the vessel, she shared stories from her home about the peace she found in solitude, the comfort she found in witnessing the changing of the seasons and phases of the moon, and the renewal she felt when sharing her wisdom with those who would listen. As she shared the story of her heart, a tear of joy fell from her eye and landed in the vessel. And here we have a picture of a mystical female figure holding up a beautiful flowing scarf against a starry night sky, and is purple and blue and red. And there is a galaxy at the center of her body. The four women paused to honor the stories from the North and the spirit of the woman who shared them. Now between the four women was a vessel filled now with waters of joy and happiness, change and transition, grief and loss, and rest and renewal. Mingled together in harmony and blessed by the women through their reverence and love for each other, the empty vessel of water was now a vessel full of compassion. Each woman then took out a small container and filled it with water to bring back to her home to share the spirit of understanding and compassion with her own community. And our community is, of course, one of those four communities, as is every Unitarian Universalist community that gathers both together and separate in this time. And so ends our story.
It is our practice at South Valley to share our Sunday worship offerings with a charitable organization that aligns with our principles and values. For the months of September and October, we have selected the Utah Food Bank. With children at home and countless adults out of work, Utah Food Bank is seeing the need for assistance significantly increase at all program and partner agency levels. For example, they have increased their delivery via their mobile food pantry by 49% and have seen an increase in need for this service of over 200% since this time last year. In addition to expanding programs and retooling methods of distribution to respect social distance protocols, they have seen a major increase in the overall need for food support. Between March and July of this year, the Utah Food Bank distributed 19.9 million pounds of food, an increase of 3.9 million pounds during the same months of 2019. They expect to continue to see increased distribution in the coming weeks and months. South Valley now has an app for giving. We have an account on Givelify. This allows South Valley to continue receiving funds to support the work of the South Valley community during this pandemic. You are invited to give using the link that is going to be put in the chat box, or you can go to your phone and download the app. Using this app will help South Valley tremendously during this time of physical distancing. Tammy is now going to put our offering words in the chat box and let us read these words together. We are this church. We are its hands,
its heart,
its voice. Together we share the wealth of this
of this
community
community and
and
sustain
sustain
it
it
with
with our
our
gifts.
gifts.
I thought we were going to bless the offerings.
Oh gosh, for all we have received and all we have found the courage to give, may we be truly thankful. May these gifts be a blessing to South Valley and to the Utah Food Bank.
We gather as many drops, each winding our own path down life's surfaces and ruts. Here we pull together in a single body, flowing together for a time. Together we are a stream, at times even a river, for with our shared force, we can travel toward oceans of meaning and seas of connection.
So a few weeks ago, we gathered this water together as part of community. And for many of us, it was the first time returning to the facility and to the grounds of South Valley. And for me, it was the first time meeting many of you as we attempted to find a way to participate in the blessing of the water and of our togetherness, to honor all that we are together, even as we are separate from one another. This water represents the communal collection of our travels, of our hopes, of our dreams, of the ways in which we bless and are blessed by this community. In a more traditional time, we would invite you now to come forward and to receive a blessing of this water and to add your water again. This year, I will contain this water in this container for now. I will hold this space, and this water will hold all of us until we are ready to gather together again. On that day when we are able to gather safely together in the sanctuary as a community, we will open this bottle and we will share its blessings with one another. And in the interim time, between now and then, over the next few weeks, we're going to be inviting you to give us representations of yourself that can also come and join this water. In the next few weeks, you will be asked to submit a letter, a picture, a drawing, a photo of a time shared with your community here at South Valley, or a sacred object. And these will be curated by a member of our community and created into a beautiful mosaic of our togetherness and held in the sanctuary along with our blessings water until we are able to gather again. So may this water hold you, support you, enliven you, and invite you to remember that we are stronger together than we are apart, and that even in this time of being physically distant, we are still together in community. Let us rejoice in this day and be glad in it, for it is the day that we have been given, and we may be a blessing upon the world.
Wherever you are is home, and earth is paradise. Wherever you set your feet is holy land. You don't live off it like a parasite, You live in it and it in you, or you don't survive. That is the only worship of God there is.
So may these waters and this blessing move into your life and enliven you with joy, compassion, perseverance, and solidarity. May it be so. So that morning, my hands were a bit clammy with nervousness as I walked into the sanctuary and took a seat toward the back. It had been more than a decade since I had sought out a church, and I wasn't sure what to expect as the music began. But as the service unfolded into the room, I felt something break open inside of me. By the time the lay leader, a man who would later become my mentor and guide through the ministerial formation process, by the time he got to his sermon, I had tears rolling down my cheeks. It was like someone came along and poured fresh and pure and healing water right into my heart, awakening a thirst for spiritual nourishment that I had so long gone without because of anger and disillusionment, that I had actually forgotten that it even existed as a need to begin with. And once I got that first sip, I thought I would never slake my thirst. Every Sunday was the same as I returned again and again and again, my heart aching and finding renewal in those pews. After several months of drinking it all in, I decided to become a member. And that was a turning point, a Damascus moment, if you will, a moment of conversion forever to the Unitarian Universalist faith. For it was during that path to membership class that I learned the history of our two faith traditions, Unitarians and Universalists. And I learned the history in particular of the Universalist tradition, how the mainline church labeled them as heretics for daring to question the church doctrine and even burned them at the stake for their ideas of universal salvation and radical love. As I heard those stories, my heart began to beat fast. My jaw dropped as it dawned on me that all of my questioning, all of my doubts, all of my thoughts about the sacred and faith and sin and salvation were not mine alone, but were instead actually part of a long-standing tradition within the various Universalist strands of the Christian theology. These were my people all this time, and the church of my youth. I'd never known that I had a community of like-minded folks. I knew then that I was not alone. I was overcome with emotion. It was a moment of healing, a moment of blessing. In some ways, you might say that it saved me. It saved me from angerness and bitterness and disconnection. And it continues to save me every day. As Unitarian Universalists, we have no doctrine and we have no creed. There is no requirement of confession of sinfulness for salvation, and here there is no hell. There's no dedicated spiritual guru or master, and yet we are absolutely a saving faith. For one, definition of salvation is the simple restoration of hope in the midst of despair. Hope is a string that guides you across the chasm of uncertainty in your life. It is a melody that you can hear when everyone else tells you to give up. Hope is the whisper that says, yes, you can. Just keep trying. Just keep going. One more step. I like to think of hope as love's fingers reaching out and grabbing you by the collar. And hope is something that we must actively cultivate all days, but especially in these days. Emily Dickinson once wrote, "Hope is a thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without words and never stops at all." Now, sometimes hope can get a bad rap for being disconnected from the way things are. But I would argue in agreement with Emily Dickinson that hope is linked to the thing with feathers, not because feathers are lightweight, but because of hope's ability to engender in us the courage to leap into the unknown, to soar above what is troubling us, to land lightly, and to return to the work with a song in our heart. So that as we do the work we are called to do, as we do the work that we must do for love and justice, we do not make the mistake of thinking that the work is all there is. I think we sometimes also get into trouble when we link hope with a specific outcome. We tend to think that if we hope for something and it did not work out, that means necessarily that hope was somehow a false guide. But it is our attachment to a given outcome that is what troubles us. And it is not the same as the light of hope that shines. Discerning the difference between those two, between our attachment to an outcome and the light of hope, takes courage or persistence and faith. And persistence and faith are qualities that religious communities can be really good at fostering. And Unitarian Universalism, with its open-hearted approach to theology and commitment to pluralistic and democratic thinking, I believe is uniquely equipped to foster these qualities in our congregations and in the world at large. Not because we are better than the alternatives. That kind of comparison thinking drains away compassion rather than kindling it. No, our power as a religious movement derives from the very proposition that encouraging free thinking and spiritual growth in the midst of beloved community is salvation enough. There it is, that word again, salvation, a word that has so much cultural baggage that it can be painful to speak, and its sound and the hearing of it can open old wounds. And because of the harm that this word is so often linked with, I speak it only gently with you here. You do not need to confess in order to participate in the salvific faith. Who you are has never been the problem. As Unitarian Universalists, we know this to be true, but sometimes we can have a hard time shouting that out, shouting our good news to the world. All too often, we have defined ourselves by what we are not. And in the work of this, we have sometimes lost sight of how much saving is going on in Unitarian Universalism. I'm reminded this morning as I look out across the sanctuary and I can see our rainbow banner hanging outside the front of our building. And below it, our Love is Love banner. And I think about what a beacon of hope that is to the world. What an opportunity to know that no creed, No doctrine, no belief in God or lack thereof is required in order to be free. In biblical Greek, the word often translated as salvation, and if you've studied Greek, you know this, that word salvation can also as easily be translated as liberation. For biblical Greek, unlike English, is a more flexible and nuanced language. And the writers of the New Testament, writing in biblical Greek, wrote with this understanding. And it is an unfortunate accident of history that that truth has been lost, and that the limitations of English and the accretions of culture have washed away the flexibility of that word. Imagine for a moment how our understanding of gospel stories might shift if instead of hearing the word salvation with all its accretion of cultural baggage for millennia, if instead we heard the word liberation. I imagine that our understanding of the original intent and the perspective on the layering of meaning over the millennia would begin to diverge. And in that space, instead of reading those stories as a demand to confess for salvation, we read them instead as a call to liberate ourselves and one another from suffering. Mainline theologians would call this heresy, would call this the beginning of a heresy, and they would be correct, and so am I. I would say this opening of interpretation is the beginning of liberation from that which creates the binary systems that suppress, oppress, and marginalize us all. And I would say the work of ending the binaries is the beginning of blessing. The premise and the promise of Unitarian Universalism is in its commitment to making space for a multitude of definitions and interpretations. And the joy of Unitarian Universalism is the freedom unleashed along the way. We are well suited to this work, and South Valley is well grounded in this space. This sanctuary is a blessing. This community is a blessing. You are a blessing unto me, and I hope to be a blessing unto you, because the world needs us in 2020, like it always has. In the midst of a pandemic and social unrest, economic inequality, and a climate change that threatens our way of life and limits the prospects of our young people, the world needs us, Unitarian, Universalist heretics, to show up and do their blessing work. We are a saving faith. We are a liberating force. We are a space of blessing. And when we remember that, we honor the sacrifices of our theological ancestors who have come before, and we pave the way for those who will take up our liberating call in the generations to come. May our blessings be a loud voice, a clarion call to love and justice that shakes the very foundations of those binaries, breaks them up, and sets us all free. May it be so. May it be so. And amen.
I'm going to sing number 1064. The lyrics will be in the chat box if you would like to sing along in your home. Everybody but myself will be muted. Below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the roaring ocean. Still my darling heart can say, I've been sailing here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on. Read the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
Now is the time to extinguish our chalice. We ask that if you have your chalice to come along with us and make sure that you read the extinguishing words, which should be in the chat box at this time. We extinguish this chalice,
but not the warmth of love,
the
light of truth, or the energy of action. We hold each other in our hearts until we meet again.
Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. What's that young girl dressed in blue? Wade in the water. Must be the children that's a coming through. Wade in the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble. God's gonna trouble the water. Get out there and trouble the water, everybody.
Hear, hear with that. Let's trouble up some water this week as we go forth. May you be a blessing, whether or not you are steam rising from the teacup or a rushing stream. May you find yourself renewed, restored, made whole by the togetherness that we share with one another. So ends our worship together. Go forth and be a blessing upon the world. May it be so, and amen. I encourage you to take a minute of break here